Hi all. Today in the discussion panel we have Dr. Girish, myself Dr. Arun Kumar, Dr. Manna, Dr. Vivek and Dr. Namita. So we'll be presenting an interesting toxicological case which came to our ER 3 days before. Over to Dr. Manna.
Thank you, sir. A 70-year-old male patient was brought to our ER with a history of altered sensorium for the past 3 hours. On initial 10-second assessment, patient airway was, initial 10-second assessment, he was conscious, but he was not oriented and he was not able to answer to my questions. His airway was patent and there was no gurgling or pulling of secretions. Breathing, his respiratory rate was 23 per minute with a saturation of 100%. Bilateral air entry was equal and there was no added sound. Circulation, his heart rate was 76 per minute and his blood pressure was 180/100 with a MAP of 128. All peripheral pulses were felt equally and bilaterally. Disability, his GCS was E2, V3, M5 with pupils were 1.5 millimeter sluggish reaction bilaterally, and his GRBS was checked at that time, that was 144. Exposure temperature was 90° Fahrenheit and hypothermia was prevented by blanket. Then at this point of time I asked for an ABG to look for any PCO2 retention or any I suspected a postictal state also, so to check for the lactate and for the sodium, ABG was asked. In that it was a normal acid base status with a lactate of 1.8 and sodium was 132. Then at GRBS was already 144. That time since his BP was 180/100 and his sensorium was altered, I started on NTG infusion was started, sir. Then moving on to the sample history, there was no history of any.
A quick question. So you said when the patient presented to the emergency department, he was not oriented, but then his airway was patent. At the same time, he couldn't say anything to you.
Yeah.
So how did you come to the conclusion the airway was patent then?
There was no pooling or pooling of secretions or gurgling. He was not tachypnic, sir.
Okay.
He was taking a spontaneous breaths.
So was there an indication for intubation that time?
That time he was no sir, actually his airway was patent, he was taking spontaneous breath. That time there was no indication.
Okay, so how you could modify the answer is you can actually say clinically the patient looks to be like airway looks to be patent because I didn't see any sort of desaturation, breathing difficulty was not there, the work of breathing was good, his rate was like within normal limits. Moreover, I took a ABG in which I couldn't find any sort of respiratory acidosis or lactate was normal. In his PO2 was also within normal limits. Hence, I proceeded to forward with further evaluation. Okay.
Moving on to the sample history, there was no allergies. Patient is not on any medications. There was a past history of carcinoma of head of pancreas for which Whipple surgery was done 5 years back, and he is on follow-up. He is not on any chemotherapy or radiation therapy at present. Last meal was previous day. Then events, patient had a history of headache since last 3 days. It was throbbing headache all over the head, for which bystanders says that he took some tablets for headache. After that his headache was worsening and gradually he had one episode of non-bilious vomiting also. Then gradually his sensorium was deteriorating, so they brought him for further management. There was no history of any seizure, no history of any fever, no other significant histories were there, sir.
So what was the indication where you started NTG for the person?
Yes, sir.
So was there any specific indication for NTG in this case?
Actually, sir, he is having a high BP with the altered sensorium, so it's a hypertensive emergency.
Any
so that's
headache medicine can produce high BP?
Actually, NTG.
No, headache medicines which is taken for headache can produce high BP. Now, over the counter you get many drugs, paracetamol, phenylephrine, pseudoephedrine combinations. Okay, all these headache medicines, they are taken as headache medicines. If you take 1 or 2 tablets, they definitely increase the BP because phenylephrine and pseudoephedrine in these type of cold medicines can increase the BP. So that is possible, but altered behavior is not possible in that case.
Then we went
Still coming to the question, why NTG?
Because patient is having a BP of 180/120, so it is high BP. It looks like a hypertensive emergency, sir, because sensorium is also low. So we thought we'll start on a IV preparation. That's why NTG was preferred.
So why
IV.
not a beta blocker like a labetalol cannot be started?
It can also be started, sir, but it is a short, both are short acting.
In emergency room, when you don't know what is the pathology, both are equally good. Labetalol and NTG is equally good. But once you understand the pathology behind the hypertension, then some condition labetalol will be good. Some conditions this one will. Suppose you think that it's a stroke, labetalol is good. Suppose you think that it's a pulmonary edema, then NTG is good. Suppose you think that it's a toxicological case, then NTG will be good. Like that we will discuss. Okay, continue.
Moving on to system examination, initial central nervous system examination was done. That time higher mental functions, his GCS was only E2, V3, M5, pupils were 1.5 millimeters, sluggish reaction was there, and higher mental functions.
In emergency room, most of the cases when you talk about GCS, always we read that when the GCS is less than 7, we have to intubate. Is there any absolute is it absolutely required for in all cases, or some cases you can deviate?
Hypoglycemia post-ictal.
It's immediately reversible condition, may not be required. Post-ictal state, hypoglycemia, toxicological drugs, all these things it may not be required.
In fact, that is one among the pitfalls in terms of GCS evaluation, because if suppose I am looking at 10 o'clock and if I see a patient with GCS of like E1, V2 or probably M3 or something, as you told, the patient might be having hypoglycemia. 10:30 a.m. you come to the ER, you take over the patient. When you look at the patient, once hypoglycemia has been corrected, the patient might be having a normal GCS. So it is more of specified to the person who is evaluating the patient, number one, and it doesn't signify any sort of diagnosis as such. It just tells you the condition at that moment of time. Okay.
Other system, the motor system and sensory system couldn't be assessed because of this low sensorium, but he was moving all 4 limbs. There was no neck stiffness. Tone was bilaterally, upper limbs and lower limb tone was normal. Then cerebellar system examination also couldn't be done, sir.
Deeply comatose patients, even if intubation is required, when they are admitting to your IC, a Ryle's tube should be placed, because they can aspirate and develop aspiration pneumonia afterwards. It is better to put a Ryle's tube and start feeding. There is no contraindication in your IC, immediately you can start feeding the patient. But since there is unconsciousness, oral feeds may not be feasible.
Respiratory system examination. Respiratory system examination, there was air entry was bilaterally equal. He was not tachypneic, and there was no added sounds. Then per abdomen examination.
What was the respiratory rate?
Respiratory rate was 22, sir.
Okay.
Then per abdomen examination, all surgical scar was present. Other than that, per abdomen examination it was soft and non-tender, and cardiovascular system was within normal limits. So initially we suspected it as a hypertensive emergency, probably something neurological, and initially patient was shifted for an emergency CT brain, which came out to be normal. Then the second DD which we considered was a press syndrome. So patient, since the patient after starting NTG, BP was rechecked and it was around 160/100, and we
you want further drop the BP, or you want to stabilize there?
We will stabilize.
Better to stabilize there. Otherwise, the patient can develop complication because of hypotension. If there is a pulmonary edema or bleed, then you have to reduce. Pulmonary edema, actually you have to reduce it very fast. Otherwise, patient will develop complication because of the failure itself. But other conditions you can take your own time and reduce it.
At this point of time, we took an ECG also. ECG was showing features of left ventricular hypertrophy, sir.
Okay.
So maybe he is an undiagnosed case of hypertension.
What are the differential diagnoses in ECG for a LVH? Somebody you take absolutely normal individual, or some palpitation, you take an ECG that shows LVH with strain-like pattern. Okay. Any other conditions can mimic that young patient.
Thin
Thin
individual,
chest wall.
thin chest wall,
Thin
thin.
chest wall will
Hypertrophic
produce a
cardiomyopathy.
large like complexes, but it not produce strain pattern.
Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy.
Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Young patient who come with LVH with strain or RVH with strain pattern, you have to always think about hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. That should be kept in mind. A patient who is not having hypertension and strain pattern, you have to keep it in mind.
Is RVH strain pattern is a normal ECG pattern in neonates?
Yes.
Okay. Why?
Because usually in the right ventricular
Transition.
and left ventricular and the wall thickness will be same in neonates, and after the shunt gets closed and only the left ventricle becomes hypertrophied and it will become more bigger size as compared to the right ventricle.
So up to 2 years, the changes in the ECG will be like more of physiological than pathological in terms of children. Okay.
This patient then we sent for routine lab investigations and all. Total count was 10,000, platelet was 2,35,000 and HB was 12.7 with a CRP of 11. Otherwise RFTs and NLFTs were normal and electrolytes were also within normal limits. Still we were suspecting in terms of press, and we sent the we had to rule out meningitis also. So we shifted the patient for MRI brain with contrast to rule out
Meningitis or encephalitis?
encephalitis, more in terms of
More,
encephalitis.
you don't have any features of meningitis. So encephalitis you can suspect.
MRI report came as normal. There was no leptomeningeal enhancement or no features of press. But still we thought we'll proceed with an lumbar puncture. LP was also normal, sir. Proteins was 45. Cells were around 4 and glucose was 54 with a corresponding GRBS of 72. ADA was normal, sir.
Okay. Did you think about any sort of peculiar cause other than all these things when you found out the pupils were having a mildly sluggishly reactive change in the ER? Did you thought about any sort of toxicological cause in this patient?
Yes, sir. Actually, toxicological cause should also be evaluated at this point of time, because bystanders actually didn't know what medication he took for that headache. So they were also not very sure what he took. So we should check in terms of a toxicological evaluation. So this patient's toxicology sample, blood, urine, and RT gastric aspirate was sent for a toxicological analysis.
Okay.
And the toxicology result came as a positive for clonidine, sir.
Clonidine.
Clonidine.
So did you go back to the bystanders and ask typical history of any over-the-counter medications or anything like that?
Yes, sir. The bystanders told that his son is actually a CKD patient on clonidine. So maybe when he had headache, he thought it might be a headache medicine, and he might have mistakenly taken clonidine for headache, sir. That might be a possibility.
What are the types of patients who present with clonidine overdose? Why do they come with clonidine overdose?
Usually patients with CKD will be on
Mostly these
Arcamin.
patients with CKD will be on clonidine. What is the important side effect of clonidine?
There can hypotension.
No, that's okay. Hypotension.
Sedation.
Sedation is okay. To take this clonidine additionally, what problem they can have? Clonidine. Those who are on clonidine. Clonidine is one drug which can produce depression. Okay. So that we should be very careful when we are giving clonidine or when we are evaluating clonidine patients, because of renal failure or whatever hypertension, they'll be already depressed, and this clonidine, since it's a centrally acting drug, it itself can produce depression. So the depression can get aggravated and they can go for a overdose. But here it is not like that. Patient has taken. Okay.
Another interesting factor is clonidine toxicity. I mean, whatever the articles are saying is clonidine toxicity is more in pediatric cases than adult cases. Why? Because most of these syndromes like the Tourette syndrome or attention deficit syndrome, the children have been treated with clonidine on therapeutical doses. So most of the time they can come with overdoses. That is one. The second thing is clonidine has a very similar picture to guanifacin, which is a more of a drug used for cough syrup and like. So children can have overdose of more of clonidine also. Yeah. Continue.
So
What is the action of clonidine? How do it act?
it acts on the alpha. It's an alpha 2 agonist, sir. Clonidine, it can act on the central and peripheral alpha 2 receptors. In the peripheral alpha 2 receptors, it will be causing more of a hypertension, and the central alpha 2 receptors, it will be reducing the sympathetic activity, and patient will go for a bradycardia and hypotension.
That is peripherally it can cause vasoconstriction,
Vasoconstriction.
thereby causing hypertension. Okay.
Then it can increase the nitric oxide release, and it can also cause vasodilatation, and again hypertension can go there. And it also acts on the mu receptors. So this patient can be it has similar action to that of an opioid also. So maybe because of the meiosis, maybe because of the mu action, sir.
Drugs which has got similar action. What are the drugs we use in our emergency room has got similar actions?
Calcium. This hypotension and bradycardia can be seen in other drugs.
Alpha 2 receptor agonists.
Agonist.
That action. What are other drugs?
Oxymetazoles, silometazole, then brimonidine, apraclonidine used for glaucoma.
Tisanidine?
Yes, sir. Tisanidine used a muscle relaxant. Dexmedetomidine.
That is the most important drug we use. So that also can produce hypertension. Tisanidine can produce hypertension. That also can be taken for depressive patients can take. Okay.
So after admitting to the ICU, patient had an event of bradycardia. His heart rate went up to 56, and that time BP went up to 90/60. That time his IVC was assessed, and he was given a fluid bolus. That time his BP and heart rate improved spontaneously.
According to ACLS protocol, in a patient who is having symptomatic bradycardia, whatever may be the cause, what is your first choice?
Usually we prefer atropine, sir.
Whatever may be the choice, whatever may be the condition, somebody is having symptomatic bradycardia, first choice is always atropine. And once you get the definitive diagnosis, there are different like hyperkalemia, you treat something else. But first line of treatment for a normal routine doctor is atropine. Okay.
This patient with the fluid bolus itself, he was maintaining, and within 12 hours he regained full consciousness. So maybe that clonidine effect subsided within that time. Otherwise, in case of clonidine toxicity, if the patient continues to be in bradycardia, we need to give atropine 0.6 mg stat, followed by every 5 minutes we will have to give atropine maximum to 3 mg.
So, the maximum 2-3 doses you can give. What is the disadvantage of atropine?
Short.
It's very short acting. So even if you give 3 doses, again if the patient is having bradycardia, you will have to go for next choice. It's only a temporary measure.
And if the bradycardia and hypotension is persisting, then we will have to think about starting dopamine, preferably to increase the heart rate and also
Only hypertension?
Only hypertension or adrenaline. Then as an antidote, usually we will consider naloxone also, because clonidine is having action on the mu receptor, so naloxone can act as a antidote, but it is having extended response to in different patients. So the dose is 0.1 mg per kg, maximum 2 mg can be given.
What's the definitive indication for naloxone?
In opioid poisoning, sir.
Okay, suppose, is there an indication in clonidine toxicity?
We can consider that, but different patients are having an extended response.
What is the indication for naloxone in clonidine toxicity? All clonidine toxicity you don't give?
With features of respiratory depression and altered
behavior. If somebody is having only hypertension, no need to give naloxone. Somebody is having respiratory depression and loss of consciousness or low GCS, then you have to give. There is a danger. Suppose this patient has already taken some other drug, antipsychotic, depressive drugs, along with clonidine. That itself can, the naloxone can produce sometimes problems. So it is a very dangerous thing. Sometimes patient can develop seizures and all. Okay, tricyclic antidepressants.
So when a patient presents with similar symptoms, what all toxicological sample will you send for? What all toxicological panel of drugs will you suspect for this period of patient?
The sort of patient sedative panel should be sent, sir. Sedatives like benzodiazepines, barbiturates, even alcohol level should be sent. Then antihypertensive panel, including the clonidine. Should also check for beta blockers or calcium channel blocker levels. Then opioids should be checked, sir.
Okay. So when the patient came to the emergency ICU, what all things did you take care of for this patient?
Actually, you should take care of the airway. In this patient, actually, airway was patent, so nothing was done. Breathing part, we need to watch for any bradypnea, respiratory depression, and there is also a risk of aspiration also. That should be considered, and look for any PCO2 retention. Circulation wise, look for the monitor for the heart rate, and look for the blood pressure also. Watch for hypotension and bradycardia. If at all patient is going for bradycardia, atropine should be considered, and bradycardia with hypotension, dopamine is ideal. Then disability part, Glasgow Coma scale was low for this patient. It should be monitored. Because of low GCS also, there can be a chance for of vomiting. Already history of vomiting is there. Can vomit and he can also aspirate that. So that should be considered. And in exposure part, in some patients will be having clonidine patches on their body. In this patient was not there. If at all that is there, that should be removed in the exposure part. And if the patient is coming with the typical history of clonidine poisoning, clonidine, extra clonidine intake and all, within 1 hour and all, we can do gastric decontamination with activated charcoal.
Here clinically we assume that it is clonidine toxicity.
Yes,
We get only clonidine qualitative report,
Yes,
not quantitative report. It's not an 100% proven report. The quantitative reports should be there to make a diagnosis actually.
Okay.
Any other endocrine conditions can present same like clonidine toxicity?
Pheochromocyte.
How do they present?
They will be having hypertension, and
Hypertension, sudden hypertension, postural hypertension, hypertension, palpitation, tachycardia, bradycardia, all these things are possible even pheochromocytoma. Do you want to do any investigation for that, or we can discharge the patient?
Actually, sir, this patient had a history of pancreatic cancer.
No, that's okay.
Pheochromocyte.
You are treated it as clonidine poisoning. We got a result of qualitative analysis for clonidine. We don't know whether the patient has taken 1 tablet, 2 tablets, or 10 tablets. So you want to investigate for pheochromocytoma now, or discharge and come back to the patient?
We have to investigate.
We have to investigate when. That is very important. When you are giving alpha blocker or beta blocker, you are not supposed to take a sample for pheochromocytoma investigation. You have to wait at least 48 hours to remove the drug from the body, then 48 hours preparation. Then only we have to collect the 24-hour urine for VMA and metanephrines. Okay, so we cannot investigate initially. We have to investigate definitely if the patient is recurring symptoms like this, because already LVH is there in the ECG. So there is some problem is going on. We don't know whether it's actual case of toxicology, because we believe the report maybe clinically and correlating with the report, most possibly it is a toxicological case, but we have to investigate for pheochromocytoma.
Okay.
So toxicological cases never get complete without any sort of psychoanalysis. So did you give any sort of psychiatric evaluation or psychoanalysis evaluation?
Actually, this patient was given a psychiatric consultation, sir, but when they counseled the patient actually accidentally took this tablet. So apart from that, he didn't have any suicidal intentions.
That's right. So did he have any sort of previous episodes like this or previous hospital admissions?
No, sir.
He didn't have anything. Okay.
Any toxic dose for clonidine described in books? It's very difficult, because why it is very difficult is most of these patients are on high dose of clonidine, like 100 microgram, 2 TID and all. So their blood levels will be always high. When you compare with a normal person, some books says that 0.01 to 0.02 for a normal person, but it can go up to, in a person who is saying like continuously on clonidine, somebody is not on clonidine, it can be even up to 0.2 milligram per kg body. So that much wide variation is there in the doses. So somebody is taking clonidine continuously, a smaller amount may produce toxicity. Somebody is not on clonidine is requiring a higher dose.
So do you think this is more of an acute toxicity or chronic toxicity?
Acute toxicity, sir. A patient just took this tablet and he was not on this medication. So first time he's taking this medication. So he presented with an acute clonidine toxicity features and subsided by itself.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, suppose it's pheochromocytoma. If he has taken beta blocker, for example, patient is having suspected pheochromocytoma. He has taken beta blocker like this as a toxic dose. What would happen to the patient? Same picture will be there. Can you
High
explain
BP.
that?
Patient will be having alpha action and
Unopposed action, and patient will have high
high
BP
BP.
initially. Later, when the beta blocker alone start acting, you develop hypotension. And that also can have bradycardia, loss of consciousness, hypothermia. Almost all clinical findings of this case will have will be there in a patient who is having pheochromocytoma who takes beta blocker. So that is very important. So we have to keep that also in mind. Whenever you are managing this type of cases, you have to always think on the opposite side also.
So to end the conversation, do you like to preferably put this case as a medical legal aspect of?
Actually, sir, usually it's an accidental ingestion.
Even if not accident, suppose he has taken intention,
Intention.
will you make it as a medical legal case? That is important.
No, sir.
Actually, suicidal intention is not a medical legal case, but we always document according to medical legal protocols only. We don't know when the patient will deteriorate, when the patient something bad happens to the patient, then it will become a medical legal case. I think suppose somebody is unconscious, you are suspecting a drug overdose, then it is better to make it medical legal and inform the police so that they may go for some investigation. It is not our duty to investigate the case. We are only treating the patient. If we suspect any medical legal issues, we have to inform it.
Alright, so this ends our discussion about the case of clonidine toxicity. Hope you understood what exactly the case and clinical features and treatment. Thank you for your patient listening.